G'day guys, Ross up here in the Adelaide Hills, and today is the first day of autumn officially. Now if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, of course it's the first day of spring, and if you're a flat earther, well, there are no seasons, so I don't know what you're doing here. Anyway, what I'll do today is I want to show you what I do for my fruit trees at the start of autumn. What I do at the start of each season is I feed them up and I get them ready for the following season. Autumn's a little different because of what it is. Each season's different. Autumn, winter, spring and summer have slightly different variations of the feeding regime, and that really depends on what the tree is going to be doing over the following 3 months and what it's done in the previous 3 months. Now I'm talking specifically about my citrus trees, of which I have 6. I've got a lemon, over my shoulder are 2 oranges, off to the left there's a couple of mandarins, and yet to be put in the ground, currently sitting in a pot, is a grapefruit. Now the citrus tend to have leaves on them all year round. With other trees, I'd be looking at putting a slow-release pelletized fertilizer on that is lower in nitrogen, because nitrogen is what you use for your leaves and your grasses, right? So nitrogen really promotes that. So it's great for things like lettuce and herbs, etc. Normally, on most trees in this time of the year, I would back off on the nitrogen because what the tree is doing, it's putting less energy up here and more energy into the root system. But citrus are going to continue to fruit. These have lots of little fruit on them, about the size of my thumb. So this tree was going to fruit over the next 3 to 4 months. I'll get lots and lots of lemons. So I'm going to give it the same feed that I would at the start of spring. The only difference will be the winter feed will be less. So what am I going to do? Well, the first thing is, not only do I want to feed it with a fertilizer, I want to make sure the bacteria in the soil are really as healthy as they can be, because the bacteria, all those little bacteria that you get from compost and from tonics, is what helps the soil absorb all the nutrients. It moves nutrients around in the soil and it helps the tree uptake those nutrients. So the bacteria are quite important. And to do that, I've got 2 things. I've got some fresh compost, and I'm also going to put in some sea salt tonic, just a seaweed tonic, and that's just going to help those bacteria. So that's a 2-stepper. In fact, while I'm talking about it, I'll pop a little sea salt straight in here. We'll put a splash in there, and that'll be enough for this lemon tree. So that's going to be in here, and what I'll do with this compost is I'm going to spread it around just generally. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, so half a bucket of compost, and that compost has beneficial bacteria, and they're going to be helped along with the sea salt tonic. So that's going to make sure that our soil, which has been really robbed from the heat and from the nutrient uptake of both the lemon tree and these pumpkins sitting underneath, it's going to help it replenish, get those bacteria up and running again. Next, I'm going to put on a slow release fertilizer. Now, most of my fruit trees this time of the year, I'm going to back off on the nitrogen. So I'm going to go for a generic rapid raiser, which has a lower nitrogen level, because the nitrogen, of course, is leaves and grass. Most trees don't need to be putting energy into the leaves. Citrus do, apple trees and stone fruit don't. So with your citrus fertilizer, it's usually got around 10 to 11% of nitrogen. And for most fruit trees, they don't need this in autumn. They do need it in spring. But citrus, I'm going to give it to them in spring, summer and autumn. And what we're going to do with this is I'm going to splash this around the drip line. Now the drip line is where the water comes down from the tree and drips to the outside. So it's a big ring. What you don't want is fertilizer right in near the trunk. You don't want it in there because most of the time it's not getting water. And even if you water in there, which I will, you don't want it too close to the trunk. So generally out by 1 metre or 2. And in fact, I've even got some in front here because this tree's ending here. So that's a good quality citrus fertilizer. And that's your NPK, and that is your food. Your nitrogen, of course, is good for your leaves. Your phosphorus is good for your budding and for your root system, and in autumn your root system is developing, your tree's putting a lot of energy into the root system, and then your potassium is good for the tree just being robust and just generally improves the health of the tree. Okay, so that's the food. That's 2. We're looking after the bacteria in the soil and we're feeding the tree. Now the third thing we need to consider is vitamins. And what I generally do there is I put in trace elements. And what trace elements are is they're all the little things that you generally don't get in the main fertilizer. So all your fertilizers are just generally different percentages of nitrogen, potassium and phosphorus. And sometimes have some trace elements, most of the time they don't. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in some powdered trace elements, and this is particularly important if you live in sand, your fruit trees are in sandy soil, because your nutrients wash out of your soil very easily. And once you lose your trace elements, what you're going to find is you're not going to get very good budding. You'll get lots and lots of flowers, and all the flowers will disappear in the first bit of wind. So get some trace elements. This particular one: sulfur, calcium, magnesium, manganese, iron, copper, zinc, boron, molybdenum. Okay, very small amounts. That's why it's called trace elements. So these are the vitamins that your tree needs, not just the feed. I'm going to pop that in there. Now this does come with iron. Yes, it does. It's chelated iron. What you can have, and you don't have it here, but you can have, and it's quite common, is to get a lot of yellowing in the leaves of a citrus tree, and that's usually an iron deficiency. It doesn't mean that your soil's iron deficient. It means that the tree can't take the iron up because your soil is too alkaline. But if it's chelated iron, then that will actually help fix that problem without having to change the pH of the soil. Over here I do have some iron sulfate. I only brought that to show you. I got given that. I'm not going to use it because between the trace elements and the little bit that's in there, that should be enough. Now the last thing I'm going to give it is a power feed. And this is an all-purpose plant food, so it's got your NPK in it, nitrogen, potassium and phosphorus. The only difference between this and the slow release is this is an instant feed, because it's been a couple of weeks since I've put any in. Here we are. That's just a splash. And that's what we'll do. I'll give that a bit of a sprinkle. So the three things we need to do: we need to improve the soil to make sure those bacteria are in the soil and doing their job. And that's through the application of some compost on top and some sea salt or things like wormweed. That's full of bacteria, so that's going to help. So step one, straight in the container there. Step two, we're going to give it a slow release fertilizer that's going to release food over the next 3 months. That's going to help the tree feed. And the third thing we're going to do is put in some trace elements and just a slow, quick release liquid fertilizer. Put it over top and help start that watering in process. Now that watering in process will happen over the next few days as we get some more rain, and I'm going to set this tree up really, really nicely for winter. It's still growing. It's going to continue to do well over the next few months, and so we want to make sure that it has everything it needs. All right, guys, that's it. So over the next week, get out there and feed your citrus trees, set them up correctly for winter, and they'll reward you with some beautiful fruit, and hopefully you'll have a nice, healthy tree. All right, thanks for your time as always. Till next time. Happy gardening. See ya.